Before I start the talk, I want to ask you a question that has been sitting on my mind for a very, very long time, which is, how do you know who you are before the world tells you who you are supposed to be? I grew up in the northeast of India, Assam specifically, in a broken home. My parents were absent for most of my childhood. Drugs, alcoholism, abuse was what I was surrounded with. And I barely remember being happy. It was a lineage thing, like generational curse, being passed like heirlooms that nobody asked for. But when do you ever get what you ask for, right? And in that negative environment, in that house which held a lot of negative weight, there was this one child who was absolutely insatiable for beauty. I had little to no resources, but from whatever I could gather, I made the most out of it. Even as a child, I was heavily fixated on absorbing everything I could. And my mom tells me that मैं 3 साल तक बोल नहीं पाता था, 3.5 साल तक. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मैं दुनिया को बचपन से ही अलग नजरिए में देखता हूँ और अलग तरीके से सुनता हूँ. And there is a lie that privilege tells us that taste is something which is for the wealthy. You have to be born in the right house, into the right family, go to the right school, be in the right city. It's some sort of luxury to have taste. But as you can see, I am the living example that statement is completely false, because I had none of that. And I still turned out fine, I guess. I'm here in front of you giving a TED talk, which was something that I could have never imagined back in the day. School days. We used to have like smart boards, and during substitute periods, जहाँ पे teacher नहीं आया करते थे, we would just I would put on TED Talks all the time and just watch all of them. But back to taste. Taste is something which is meant to be cultivated, preserved, pushed with right curiosity. You need to be curious to ever entirely understand what culture is, right? And I've always believed that I have a line on one of my songs from my most recent project, Farouk, which you all should check out if you ever get the time out of the books. It says that abhi bhi na hai mujh pe cash, but rolling with the Chevy on the moon is a good feeling. इसका तात्पर्य ये है that always dream big, don't dream small. भाई सपनों की दुनिया है, समझ रहे हो? सपनों से ही बनती है दुनिया, मेरे हिसाब से. शायद मैं delusional हूँ, but it is what it is. I always wanted to be, as a child, I always wanted to be like a sportsman, right? Like a cricketer, how every other kid in this country wants to be. But I realized that sports in smaller cities are plagued by politics more than they are in bigger cities. Then the rib cage infection took me out. I also had duck feet, for which I was bullied throughout school. And I was not the most beautiful boy to look at, like in school, like, you know. I always thought that I was really ugly, and I had intense amount of self-hate, which you don't even know wears you. Slowly, until you know that's all you're covered with. But even in those days of, like, you know, even in those days of grief, I always believe again that I'm meant to be at stages, bigger stages, like this one right now. You know, just being present somewhere, being pushed into challenging predicaments is something that I found very pleasing. And I've always only wanted to be the center of attention, and it's very true. I love attention. I love that you are seeing me. And coming back to what I was saying about cricket and sports, and all of that thing happened, and then I was like trying to delve into newer things. Like I took up swimming classes, I joined violin classes, you know, all those jargon, and I realized that that's when I figured it out that I have ADHD, because I can't stand somewhere, man. Whenever I used to pick this, I was like, I could see this door, and then I will see that door. I'll be like, let's go there, let's come here, you know. It was so very challenging for me. Even at that point, I didn't have the language for it, but now I do. But even then, I didn't see that as something which was a failure, you know. I believe I'm a seeker. I seek for things. I keep seeking, you know. I seek, and then hip hop found me, or I found hip hop. However you want to say. My neighbor's PCs, my cousin's PCs, were all filled with hip hop music videos, like the ones, I don't know if you all know, Florida, Pitbull. You know, back in the day, we were Let Me Blow Your Whistle and all of that. And I was really like enamored by how it looked, those videos. And my dad's BlackBerry phone used to have Notorious B.I.G. songs in it, which even he has no idea how it ended up there, where it was there, you know. I found hip hop without even knowing what it was. Like, you know, sometimes you don't have a name for what you're looking for, but you find it. And being enamored by that, I started like delving really seriously into it for a brief period of time, because again, you know, ADHD. 4th grade में मुझे याद है हमारे स्कूल में, हमारे क्लास में ऐसा हुआ करता था that there were like 5 of my friends. Our entire friend circle was really into rap music, and we would memorize verses by writing them. So Eminem का verse है गाना है Monster करके. I remember writing the entire verse, memorizing it all, and just to flex in class, because, you know, what else do I have? I'm not a good-looking boy. All I have is like my mouth, and all I could do is speak. I could speak well, I presume. And slowly, even that phase disappeared, right? Then again, I found myself. It was like, well, you know, you can't be separated from what is meant for you. Then one of my friends, Kyson, in 7th grade, introduced me to Kendrick Lamar, DNA to be specific. This is when Damn dropped in 2017, when I was 13 years old. And after listening to the second verse of that song, I realized that this is what I want to do in life, which is like bizarre, which would be bizarre for a lot of kids coming from the Northeast, a tier 2 city. I sat for 4, 5, 6 hours trying to learn what flows are, what lyrics, how wordplay, double entendre, reading about the African American diaspora, the culture, read about the world, history. Because I wanted my words to carry a weight, like a significant amount of weight. And it was not told by anyone, I was not influenced by anyone to do any of this. I was doing it because I couldn't stop thinking about it. And after 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, all I did was write and listen, But मेरे पास ये भी होता है कि wanting to make music and having the means to make music are two very separate things. अलग ही ballpark है. And I had a horrible Lenovo laptop back from 5th grade to 9th grade, where I couldn't produce music, I couldn't record music, right? So what I did was I promised, I made a deal with my parents. See, my immediate first cousins who used to live right next door to us are all academics, they're PhD holders, professors, and engineers and all of that. So my parents have always been very hard on me to get good grades and everything. But little did they know that I didn't care about any of that until it was on my turn. See, I made a bet with my parents where I told them, Mom and Dad, अगर मैं अपने बोर्ड एग्जाम में 95% लेके आऊँगा तो आप मुझे एक अच्छा लैपटॉप दोगे 60,000 का, which is a big amount, 60,000 rupees. And I got 95.4%. I got the laptop. I'm a stubborn child, We'll get to that. I'm a stubborn child. And I got 95.4%. And I remember the first 3 months after getting it, I would sit on my laptop at 10 a.m. right after breakfast in the morning, every weekend, because we had school as well in 11th grade. Every weekend I would sit there at 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. My parents would leave the house at 10 a.m. for whatever, and they would come back at 6, and they would still see me, on the laptop. And that's when I realized, and they also must have thought that this is madness. This boy is going crazy. My best friend from school, Kay, who also makes music, had just purchased a small USB microphone, right? And I would tell my parents that every weekend, this is in 12th grade, every weekend I would tell them that I'm going for tuition. I would go to his house and make music on a small USB microphone जो एक अलमारी में रख के हम record करते थे, because that's the most soundproofing we could get. And through that, doing that, in 2022 I started this project, this beautiful project that is still the first love of my life, Madeira. I made Madeira in 2022 with my best artist friends, Arslan and Pakiza. And what I wanted to tap in that project was to make something that India had never heard of before, because by then I had been completely enamored again by alternative hip hop in the West. MF Doom, Open Mike Eagle, Sweatshirt, Danny Brown, all of them were my idols, and I wanted to be just like them, make something which had not been done in India before. I was obsessively listening to Indian hip hop as well, just because I wanted to know what to make and what not to make, right? And it is very important. It is very important for any like, you know, any spare to have like a creative community. See, making something which is not mainstream or doesn't follow the mainstream conventions are is very, very risky, especially in India, because in India, people don't consume inaccessible, alternative, experimental music. But I was like, I need to make music for myself first and then for the rest of the people. So when you're making something like that, something that niche, there'll be a lot less people, you know. But the ones who are there are going to be really true and really follow you and really love what you do, and like a cult develops, you know, a cult. And that's how I believe that the cult developed as well. I found the right people, the right community, the people that I made music with. It all culminated into me being this individual who is now confident about the kind of music that he's making. And I'm really grateful to all the fans, to everyone here as well who is listening to me speak about this. And it's incredible how we are told in school and everything that, like, you know, being nerdy is not cool enough. You know, being nerdy, talking about lineage of art forms and all that things are very it's not interesting. But I could tell you one thing for certain, which I wish somebody had told me back in the day, that being completely devoted to something, nothing is cooler than being completely devoted to something. And nothing is more magnetic than stop performing yourself, be yourself, you know. And I'm not a perfect slate, I'm not a clean slate. My body is giving up on me. I've lied to my parents, I don't have good relationships with them. And like, you know, my this entire thing is not free of, you know, consequences, but I've always believed that the plot is bigger than what it seems to you right now. And I'm shauharty. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Ted, and it's lovely to be out here. Thank you.